Artificial intelligence is coming into our lives from so many different directions, whether it's in our everyday lives. So for example, we all now, when we message with our family and friends, AI can enter the conversation as chatbots, or our workplaces are using AI to monitor how we do our work, or we are using generative AI to ask questions about the news, about our daily lives, and to form our opinions. Even if we're not using it, how our governments manage us and make policy decisions around us, now that process has AI in it. And so we basically want this theme to be a space where we can come together and understand these transformations and also resistances to these transformations happening in society.
One of the things that we really need is some distance and some perspective to understand this phenomenon that has a lot of hype attached to it. And that distance and perspective is something that comes really valuably from the humanities and social sciences as disciplines. You have researchers who work on all sorts of things that are to do with societal transformations, including from times past. Archaeologists, ancient historians looking at transformations that occur in society, but also those who look at issues much closer up. And they bring that kind of understanding of what might be at stake with something like AI that isn't just from those who research on AI specifically, but comes from that wider perspective.
So I look at human rights and technology, and artificial intelligence has really disrupted this space, as with so many others. So for example, I look at how human rights evidence is constructed, and with the rise of deep fakes, things have really changed. I also think about how our human rights play out in the digital space, and so AI has impacted our freedom of expression, our freedom of opinion, our freedom of assembly. I also research how, why, and when people resist the entrance of big technologies into their everyday lives. And I look at these through the lens of thinking about how the values that come with these technologies may or may not align with their own community values that they're trying to defend and protect.
My work broadly examines intimate examples of human-tech relations. So these might be instances where humans have strong emotional attachments to technologies, with a focus on consumer drones, is my particular angle. Rather than look at this from sociology or from psychology, I use my background in English literature and cultural studies to use queer, feminist, and disability lenses to examine the political and social potential of these attachments. So currently, much of AI research and digital tech research more broadly will look at, I would say, more obvious or explicit or even extreme sites of humans' positive attachments to technology. This may include AI girlfriends, sex robots, chatbots serving as therapists. And while these are all critically important, it overlooks the more strange side of these relationships, or also the mundane side of these relationships, where everyday life is also embedded with these attachments, such as people being so-called addicted to their cell phones, or hobbyists who use drone technology to escape everyday life and the limits of their bodies and the particular narratives and words they use to describe that relationship. So I'm interested in looking at attachments maybe where we don't always expect to see them, or where we overlook them because they've become so normalized.
I'm a political sociologist. I study power relations in governance mechanisms, and my current research is on algorithmic governance and policing. So I look at AI integration in everyday policing, specifically in the state of Kerala in India. In that, I'm specifically looking at what happens when AI infrastructures are introduced as automated decision-making systems, and what happens to everyday governance, but more specifically, what happens to the discretion of subordinate level state personnel. So for instance, the traffic cop, police constable, lower level officials, what happens when AI-enabled automated decision-making systems feature into governance mechanisms, and how does it affect their discretion? And so we try and unpack who are the people behind these systems, how does it affect different people, and what kind of power relations does it embody?
I've been working on the relationship between citizens and civic action in parts of Eastern Africa and technology, and how technology is changing the way that citizens participate in public life and speak truth to power, etc., in that part of the world. So I've been looking at technology and media for quite some time, and of course AI is transforming all of this. And I think what really interests me is that when you see these technologies from a place in the world like Eastern Africa, and you understand what these technologies mean in people's everyday experiences, you see something quite different. On the one hand, you see it used in forms of surveillance and control that are much sharper than we might expect them to be in parts of the world, in the global north as such. But on the other hand, you also see AI as something different. So one thing that's really surprising is that a lot of these machines, a lot of these algorithms that we use and seem like they're effortless in artificial robots are actually being created by human labor, by data workers who are labeling lots of data to train these machines to be able to do what they do. And a lot of that data work occurs in parts of the global south, like Eastern Africa, where I work. And so you see that actually this production of this technology is not that dissimilar to lots of other things in the past where bonded labor or servitude have been part of an extractive process that's linked to the development and progress of other parts of the world. And so perspectives on AI, I think, are global and they need to be seen that way, and that's where my research is especially focused.
Primarily, my research is looking at how AI is changing the way we produce, share and trust knowledge. So this extends from education to education and institutions like the universities, but also other public institutions around policy making. One of the things that's become increasingly important is around journalism and public trust in knowledge. There's a lot about fake news, and the possibility of AI generating deep fakes or fake information has become really important. And I'm interested in how these changes are interplaying with one another. So the technology is introducing changes in how we communicate and how we interact, how we go about doing things within the universities, within journalism, how we read and understand content. So it's massive. You know, it's a really interdisciplinary approach to understanding this. AI isn't just about machines. We've got very good people working across the world around this technology, including in Cambridge. But what we're interested in Humanities and Social Sciences is values and meanings, and how people are responding to this in relation to their own communication with each other, how they make sense of themselves and how they make sense of the world around them. So the Humanities and Social Sciences, in an interdisciplinary way, really help us ask these deeper questions.
I think it's really interesting if we also reflect on ourselves at the university as a site of cultural production, with AI coming and disrupting that. So what does AI do for how we understand what scholarship is, how we think about how we teach what education is, and how we even think about things like the emotions of scholarship, the eureka moments of discovery, and how AI might impact those?
So I think what I'd really love to see is, in a sense, the element of a bit of surprise. And why I say that is that we know there's really great research happening on AI. It's happening within our departments and faculties, and it's happening elsewhere. But we're quite sure that there's new perspectives and new understanding that has to be brought to bear, and that's going to come from fresh conversations between researchers in different disciplines, the way in which curiosity and interest in each other's perspectives comes together and blends and creates new understandings, and just the inspiration that comes from academics at their best, taking inspiration from each other's work. So I think that sort of element is really important to what we can achieve in something like this, and it's quite different to the more specialized research that often is taking place within the departments and faculties that make up our school.